Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of TechCabal Live. My name is Nneka, and I am today's moderator. I'll be moderating today's session. Before I get to introducing everyone who is going to be speaking during today's session, I'll just like to go over some house rules and share some information. We're going to hear a presentation from a member of the IFC team before we jump right into the conversation. So first things first, this event was organized by TechCabal Insights. TechCabal Insights is the events, research, and data analytics arm of TechCabal. TechCabal Insights is an Africa-focused digital economy consultancy that leverages big data to help startups, investors, operators, big tech companies, government, and other ecosystem players on and off the continent to answer specific questions and implement key interventions. What this basically means is that if you're looking for data, insights, if you're looking for a group of people who understand the numbers behind, exits, acquisitions, funding, all of those things, TC Insights is that group that can help you break down certain things or put together reports on your behalf. TechCabal speaks to the business and human impact of technology and innovation in Africa through high quality articles, reports, and events such as this one. We also publish some newsletters that some of you may be familiar with, like TC Daily, which is our most read and most loved newsletter, the Next Wave, which is great for anyone who wants to understand the future of tech in Africa, business and tech in Africa, excuse me. We also have Entering Tech for young people who are trying to break into tech. And then we have a weekender publication called, weekender newsletter, excuse me, called TC Weekender, that is basically a roundup of the top tech stories you may have missed during the week. If you're not subscribed to any of our newsletters, and we've created quite a diverse collection of newsletters to appeal to different audiences, our chat room moderator is going to drop some links in the chat room so that you can subscribe to the one that best suits your tastes. I'm going to run through the agenda and then mention some names as well and people you should know. I'm going to introduce our guests, speak a little bit about what they do, their professional history, and then we're going to have the conversation for 30 minutes, and then we're going to have a 30-minute Q&A session as well before we wrap up. During that Q&A session, you are welcome, or before the Q&A session, you're welcome to send in questions for our panelists using the Q&A feature. Please do not put your questions in the chat box, because that will kind of distract people who may just want to leave comments or agree with something that, or agree or disagree respectfully with something that our panelists said. But if you have a question that you'd like to be answered during the conversation, then please go into the Q&A box. You see it at the bottom of the screen next to the other, what do you call it, tabs at the bottom, some like whatever you want to click on, click on Q&A and submit your question. We'll try to answer all of them before the end of the session, but we do only have 30 minutes as we like to keep to time where this event is concerned. Next up, I want to briefly mention the IFC report. The IFC, or the International Finance Corporation, is a member of the World Bank Group, and they are the largest global development institution focused on the private sector in emerging markets. The IFC report, developed in partnership with Coursera and the European Commission, is an in-depth report on how online platforms can support women in accessing job-relevant courses and credentials to advance their employment and entrepreneurship opportunities. In case you are not aware, this is a conversation about women and online learning. So a lot of what you're going to hear is focused on women, okay? If you have a problem with that, this is not the right room for you, and you can respectfully bow out. But if you want to learn, and you want to learn from our amazing panelists who are very knowledgeable, then I would really advise you to stay on the call and even share the link. It's not too late. We have about an hour, 30 minutes. So please feel free to share this link with people in your network that you think would benefit from it. Now I'd like to invite Pamela Liam. She's the Disruptive Technology Officer in IFC's Gender and Economic Inclusion Group, and she is going to walk us through the report and tell us a bit more about the IFC as well. Hi, Pamela.
Hi, thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure being here. So my name is Pamela Lian. I'm a disruptive technology officer here at IFC, and I'm excited to share more about our work on this topic. I'll now walk you through the key highlights of this report for Nigeria and demonstrate that there is a great economic opportunity, not only for online learning platforms, but for everyone, to make sure that more women can have access to education and improve their career and economic opportunities. In Nigeria, where many women are currently learning online, there are still gender gaps that need to be addressed. So let me tell you a little bit more about our research. Okay, so Sub-Saharan Africa has the world's lowest regional tertiary enrollment rates. And among those who do have post-secondary education, women are outnumbered by men. Not only that, but women are also more likely than men to be unemployed and underemployed. So in this context, online learning presents a unique opportunity to provide access to post-secondary education opportunities, and as we will see later on in this presentation, job opportunities. Globally, we saw a wide-scale adoption of online learning, but not much is known about how and why women are choosing to learn online, or their unique challenges. Closing these gaps will be critical to ensuring that women fully benefit from online learning in order to access more and better job opportunities, and to identify ways to support learners in keeping up with the changing nature of work. To address this gap in knowledge, we partnered with Coursera and the European Commission to conduct this extensive study on women and online learning in emerging markets and provide comparable data across different geographies, demographic profiles, and subjects. We combine data of men and women on Coursera's platform with surveys of learners in Egypt, India, Mexico, and Nigeria. We also ran interviews with learners and experts across the sector to add a bit more color and nuance to an already quantitatively robust data set. So what did we find on women's participation in online learning in Nigeria? Well, first, of the 1.1 million learners on the Coursera platform in Nigeria, women represent 1/3. Secondly, the COVID-19 pandemic pushed up women's share of participation, and 65% of women said that they will continue to exclusively learn online following the COVID-19 pandemic. Lastly, we also know from the main report that women in emerging markets are still the minority of STEM learners on the platform, despite the progress in recent years. We also uncovered two key deciding factors that drew women to online learning. When we asked learners what motivated them to join online learning platforms, we found that mobility, for example, commute restrictions and family obligations, such as childcare and elder care, are bigger drivers for women than they are for men. For men, on the other hand, affordability and access to high-quality providers were bigger drivers. The overwhelming majority of learners, regardless of gender, ranked flexibility as the top motivator that drew them to online learning. So all of this is good news. Women are on the platform actively engaged in online learning, but as we will see, not all participation is equal, and there is still more to be done to help women fully benefit from their learning experience online. We also uncovered two key things valued by learners. One is credential acceptance. We found that credential acceptance is highly valued by learners in Nigeria, and over half cite it as key to making online learning more appealing. On the job side, a higher proportion of learners also report that their online credentials are valued by employers more than the other countries we've studied. So this is an interesting case because not only do learners in Nigeria rate the credibility of online learning the highest, they also rate it as something that could be strengthened to make online learning even more appealing. On the other hand, in terms of reaching learners, we learned that mobile phone compatibility is a really key issue in this region, where 3 out of 5 people access their courses by mobile phone. Now that we've uncovered these characteristics of the Nigerian online learning market, what are some of the challenges faced by learners? Well, the top request for men and women is affordability, but women only make up 24% of financial aid applications and are more likely to rely on free trials. Additionally, women are also less likely to pursue specializations and professional certificates, which usually require payment. The other aspect I'd like to speak to is connectivity. For learners in Nigeria, accommodations to limited or irregular connectivity is particularly important. A quarter of all learners report that accommodations for limited internet connectivity would make online learning more appealing. And this is the highest out of all the surveyed countries. And lastly, mobile compatibility. As we now know, mobile access is extremely prevalent in the region, and making sure that course content is mobile friendly is key to improving the online learning experience. An important aspect to keep in mind, though, is the gender divide in connectivity in general. Women are less likely to be online and own a mobile phone. So now that we know a bit more about the unique challenges faced by women, what are some of the benefits of online learning? Well, first of all, for men and women in Nigeria, online learning is helping them to improve their job and career prospects. 38% of online learners in Nigeria report positive job or business outcomes as a result of online learning. On the other hand, 19% of women entrepreneurs and a quarter of male entrepreneurs started new businesses or secured a job or promotion as a freelancer. Secondly, aspiring entrepreneurs are particularly likely to benefit from online learning, and 70% of women who joined the platform to start their businesses succeeded in doing so. Finally, and perhaps one of the most exciting findings of the study is that not only does online learning support learners in finding new job opportunities, it also creates new jobs in the economy. One new job is added to the Nigerian economy for every 30 people trained by Coursera. This is an incredible opportunity for growth and impact that can benefit so many people. But you might be wondering, how exactly are these new jobs created? Well, these new jobs are created in two ways. First, through the creation of new businesses, and second, through increased consumptions by those with positive job outcomes that lead to higher incomes and economic activity. So as we can see, facilitating access to online learning can therefore have wide-reaching economic benefits. Our research also answered one key question, which is, what do platforms gain from closing gender gaps? Well, this is one of our most noteworthy discoveries, which is our finding of the huge opportunity of $14 billion of additional market value in emerging markets in the next 5 years alone. However, this would only happen if platforms attract around 8 million women per year into the paid online market. So that means for every year that gender gaps remain unaddressed, billions of dollars are being left on the table. So how can we close these gaps? Well, first, we need to address the gaps in access to financing. This means offering financial aid and scholarships targeting women and marketing it effectively. Platforms also need to work together with companies, governments, and institutions to find financing solutions for women and underserved learners, and to strengthen pathways between learning and careers. Secondly, online learning platforms need to collect data on women and men. As we know, what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So the first step is to collect the data. This would help platforms to better understand women's unique experiences and needs in order to better design solutions to improve their experiences and outcomes. Third, increasing women's participation in STEM where they are currently underrepresented is crucial, even in online learning platforms. Platform analysis shows that having one female instructor in the team increases women's participation by 12 percentage points. But of course, it is also important to prioritize women's entry into high-demand skill areas and grow their digital skills in growing fields. Finally, it is important to connect the offerings from online learning platforms with the job market. And this can be done by partnering with employers and promoting the adoption of skill-based hiring practices, and also improving accreditation and authentication by using new and emerging technologies and promoting foolproof ways to verify achievement to help sway reluctant employers. And finally, I'd like to highlight again that we're standing in front of an opportunity not only to grow markets by $14 billion, but to truly make a difference in women's education and employment. For more information on this research and our work in this space, please visit ifc.org/digital-to-equal and join the conversation online at #digital-to-equal. Thank you everyone for your time and the panelists for what will surely be an insightful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pamela. That was very insightful. And in the chat, just if you've missed it, Jaylan from the IFC team has shared something that you can take a look at during the conversation or after we're done. So now I'm going to introduce each speaker, talk briefly about them, and then we'll dive into the conversation. So our first speaker is Abisoye Akinfolarin-Ajayi. She is a social impact entrepreneur and the founder of Pearls Africa. She founded that business in 2014. Pearls Africa is an NGO focused on promoting the cause and advancement of vulnerable young girls and women in Africa. Abisoye was named one of the BBC 100 Women in the World in 2018 and also received the prestigious CNN Heroes Award in that same year for her work in gender equality through digital skills empowerment. Thank you so much for joining us today, Abisoye. Our next speaker is Dasha. Dasha is a skills transformation consultant advising universities on digital innovation strategies across the EMEA. She has previously worked for QS World University Rankings, consulting higher education institutions globally on their reputation and performance through data and research, as well as leading thought leadership projects in international education. I believe today she's representing Coursera, and she helps Coursera's clients to prepare for the future of education and work. Thank you for joining us. Next, we have Nneka. Nneka is the director of the Enterprise Development Center, Pan-Atlantic University. She's an effective, results-oriented professional with core expertise in strategy, leadership, trade services, business incubation, customer service, and project management. Nneka has close to or even more than 24 years of relevant experience in entrepreneurship, development, banking, oil and gas. So she's worked in several sectors and is also an avid gender specialist and has successfully mentored over 500 women entrepreneurs. And we're very excited to have her here with us. And then our final speaker is Fadl. Fadl is the CEO and founder of Nextford University. Personally, I've definitely engage with Nextford in my LinkedIn DM. So I'm sure a few people are familiar with Nextford. He became an entrepreneur at 18 and has 20 years experience founding digital marketing and technology businesses. He founded and managed the MENA region's leading digital engagement agency. Its clients included Fortune 500 companies, the US State Department, and so much more. Nextford's two core principles are a lack of education is the root cause of most global challenges, which is 100% true, and people should be able to access economic opportunities irrespective of physical location, also very true. Thank you so much to our speakers for joining us. We're going to dive right in. I just want to say, if you have any questions, please pop them into the Q&A box. We will address them. And if the panelists at any point are actually welcome to go in and type in a response if they see a question that they want to answer, or they can wait till the Q&A session to respond to the questions. Please feel free to engage in the conversation via the chat box. If you agree with something, please put it in there. If you want to share something from your personal professional experience connected to this conversation, please feel free to drop it in. So I'm going to ask my first question, and it's directed at everyone, and anyone is welcome to unmute and speak. But the first question is obviously, why is it important to promote women's participation in online learning? I'd like to hear two different things, if possible. One, the challenges that exist at the moment with getting women online. And then on the other side, why it's actually important for women to participate in online learning. Yes, who'd like to go first?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I believe historically, marginalization has been a key factor, which is a problem. And marginalization in women accessing education, young girls accessing education, especially in rural communities, in underserved communities. And marginalization is also driven by economic limitations. So for instance, in a family whereby they are managing themselves with the little resources they have, they'll tell you that, equip our boys, let our boys be educated and leave our girls alone. And this is a problem I've encountered in the local communities over the years, and which is still an ongoing conversation for parents to allow their girls to learn as the same way they allow their boys to learn, because I believe everyone is important and everyone has a right to quality education. So that is a problem, but I know that with online education, with online learning, this particular economic issue and barrier can actually be reduced. And I don't know if I should leave it as that, because I also have another point about fertility rates and how this can also help. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll circle back and give you a chance to share that additional point. Nneka, any thoughts from you on why it's important to promote women's participation in online learning?
Yeah, so I think my question would be, why not?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. Why not make sure that we have more women going online? But if we look at it, by getting more women to go online and to learn online, the very first thing that will happen is that their mindsets change. And by the time their mindsets are changing, which is the fundamental thing that we need to happen, then we can empower them economically and financially. 1, 2, they're able to make better informed decisions that affects absolutely everything. And then lastly, historically, we're caregivers. And by going online, we are able to modify those roles as caregivers, and everything in between. And really, by the time we get them in, we find out that by the time one woman has gone online, has understood the benefits, she's able to have a more catalytic effect in making sure that women's rights are enforced.
Yes, that's such a good point. Dasha, in your experience, have you come across this problem where there's a lack of inclusivity where women are concerned in online learning? And can you share a little bit of your own observations?
Yes, 100%. So first of all, I agree with what the other panelists have shared massively. And I think, certainly at Coursera, we have over 100 million learners, and we see a significant disparity in females learning online in the Africa region, but specifically in Nigeria as well. At the moment, it's 33% of our learners are female. Across Africa, it's at 37%, so it's really low. And why should women learn online? I think it's one of the best strategies we have for addressing the gender gap in education overall, particularly tertiary education, and of course, addressing the gender gap in employment and in some of the core emerging areas that we touched upon, like tech, where we know the gender disparity is particularly prominent. Actually, online offers a really, there are many problems, but a more accessible way to access some of those core emerging skills for women. So I think it's one of the best solutions we have to economically empowering women and, of course, improving women's rights more broadly as well.
Thank you so much. Fadl, do you have any thoughts you'd like to add to this?
Sure. As the only, male on this panel, which I just realized earlier, I think really the most significant point is the concept of both social and economic empowerment. As well as the fact that women tend to pass on a lot more education generationally. So, when you think about the impact, the multiplier effect of educating a woman versus a man, the reality is, so long as that woman actually, has children subsequently, and passes on that education, there's really a very significant multiplier effect there, which just doesn't take place with men. So I'd say that's probably the most important reason. And then the second is success. So, there's this concept called, reinforcing success. So when you think about that principle, women actually have much higher graduation rates than men. So despite, there being more men in higher education around the world, completion rates are higher among women. So if you think about it from that perspective, then we have to find ways to encourage more adoption, because that's going to lead to higher success than male rates based on the current data available worldwide.
Thank you so much. Just sorry to the TC Insights team, Pamela needs to be bumped back up to panelist so she can also contribute to this conversation. Thank you guys for your responses. Now I'm just going to ask specific people specific questions. So Dasha, I'll start with you. So although we know that there's still a significant gender gap in education, and you even shared a figure that's specific to Africa, right? We are seeing more women participate in online learning or online education, right? Can you tell us how this growth, although slow, has been pivotal to a platform like yours, like Coursera, right? And then the growth to the education industry or growth within the education industry at large, right? So one, how has it impacted Coursera, seeing more women come online? And then how has that also impacted the education industry at large as well?
Yeah, great question. So to give you an idea of growth that we've seen, as you said, it has been slow. So in 2017, 26% of our learners from Nigeria, as an example, were female. And now I said it's 33%. So it's slow, but we're definitely seeing growth, and we're definitely seeing better gender parity when it comes to online learning and engagement, which is brilliant. I think for us as a platform, we aim to reach as many learners as possible, and we also aim to reach a diverse group of learners, because the way that it enables us to impact local economies, opportunity locally, the way that it enables us to impact employers and industries and sectors, everybody benefits from a diverse set of learners, employees, colleagues, and peers. So I think certainly for us, if we're not reaching 50% of the female learners in the country, then we're not reaching all of the learners that we should be reaching. And that's absolutely a goal for us. And B, we also know that women learn differently online. They're looking to access different types of content. And interestingly, Fadl, you presented a sort of a stat around women being more likely to complete higher education. And I think that's true. However, when we look at online learning and kind of, I suppose, stackable career-focused learning, actually in emerging markets, women struggle to complete that learning because of the commitments that they have, to family, their caring responsibility, all of the unpaid work that women do worldwide, but particularly in emerging regions where there isn't that gender parity and support. So we know that there are many challenges. And another aspect that I think is really interesting about female learners online is that we see that they engage better with female professors. So when there's a female instructor, there's a female role model, they're more likely to commit to the learning, to engage and to persevere. So unless we have that kind of diverse learner group, we're not adapting our platform and we're not learning from them either. So I think the more learners we have, the more inclusive we can be, and the more we can source, our content and our partnerships in a more intentional and meaningful way. So I think it's a sort of it's like an ecosystem and a model that feeds itself. The more data we have, the more females we can attract, and the more we can adapt the way that we present our learning, how stackable and flexible we make it to kind of accommodate a very different lifestyle that we see females have, particularly in emerging markets.
Thank you so much. And there's a point you made that I would like to ask a question about, but I'm directing the question at Nneka, right? You talked about, yes, especially on the continent, women historically have been relegated to, household duties, and even when they are working, they're underpaid, which means that access to finances and the capital required to even pay for courses, whether they're cheap or expensive, it doesn't matter, right? There's a gap there. So Nneka, I would just like to know, access to finance is a repeated challenge, and women face it, at a greater degree, right? Even for women who are thriving online, maybe earning money as freelancers or whatever the case may be, right? So in your opinion, what kind of innovations do you think could help women overcome this financial barrier? There's a willingness to learn, but we can't ignore the fact that they need access to money, right, to pay for these courses.
Okay, so I think one of the things that we can look at is alternative mechanisms. So what do I mean by that? So alternative credit risk assessments, the way we're assessing it for men and women, we need to look at it differently from a different prism. The second thing is that even the loan disbursement and how that happens is something that we can look at. And the reason is simple, because there's an absence of formal financial histories where women are concerned compared to men. So if we look at the fact that they don't have that, it makes them less creditworthy. So we need to start to rethink a lot of those things. That's one. Then the second thing is that as much as possible, I hate to say this, but that's the truth. If there are some micro little grants that are available for these men to do the courses, it's something that should be made available. And I say that even if it's free, in some instances, there's some that can be free. I'll give an example of the Have Venture. So there's an online learning platform that is made available to women in Nigeria. They come on the program free. So it's for women entrepreneurs. And for the most part, a bit of the learning, most of the learning is free. But what we found out from an initial survey that we did is that within completion of the program that is actually stackable and it's a modular format, we're seeing that their revenues are increasing in some instances as much as 92%. We're seeing that they're increasing the number of employees that they're recruiting as much as 40%. And in terms of retaining customers and getting more customers. So what that means is that it's a good bet. At the end of the day, the credit that we're looking for, there's no need for that because they see their businesses better, their mindsets have changed, and they become a better customer. So I think looking at the risk assessments, looking at the loan disbursement, looking at even the types of collateral, because traditionally women don't own property. So just having a look at all those things within the formal financial sector would help.
Thank you, Nneka. And I really love this suggestion or this recommendation to sort of look at alternative ways to assess how much a woman is earning, regardless of whether she's in informal or formal work. And are there ways to get her to do a program and then say, okay, maybe you can pay back in this way, right? As opposed to just saying we need the fee flat out because a lot of women cannot afford it, right? That's the honest truth. So I want to piggyback on that and direct this question to Fadl, right? So Nextford is known for being accessible and affordable, but still we see that when it comes to the African market, maybe there's not a diverse range of courses that really speak into some of our challenges, right? Some of the things that we need to learn to actually contribute to the continent, right? So for example, I want to learn how to be a better media specialist for the African market. It's unlikely that I'm going to find a course that speaks to the needs, right? So in your own opinion, how do you think we can overcome these challenges? One, where we're dealing with diverse courses, and then two, back to this question on finances, right? Even if you're offering scholarships or slashing fees, it's still a problem, right? So how is Nextford dealing with these challenges, and what recommendations could you make to stakeholders in the industry?
Sure. So on the first point on the diversity of courses, I think the breadth of courses and the diversity of courses is increasing very rapidly, right? Like, the number of players in the market is just increasing almost on a daily basis. And the offerings, whether from the likes of, Coursera or, organizations like Nextford, or many, many others. So frankly, I think the challenge there isn't so much the availability of courses or the diversity of courses. It's more around how do you ascertain the value of that course and the quality of the course. So I think the options that are available on the market have almost backfired, and from a consumer perspective, there's an overabundance of choice, and it's become very difficult for a consumer or even an employer to evaluate. Do I take course A or course B? Because there's 1,000 options, of almost every course that you want to look at. So I think that's really where we need to do as an industry. We need to come together and try to figure out how do we facilitate evaluation of quality. And there's a lot of work going on around that, more so in the US, but obviously we'll come to Africa soon. On your second question of affordability, I would say it's the same applies to males. And again, if you look at the data, default rates among female microloan holders are actually lower than male defaults. So females tend to be more reliable when they access loans, they actually pay them back. But having said that, what we're doing is, besides scholarships and trying to make our education affordable in the first place, is we're trying to work with employers right now on creating what we call career pathway programs. So essentially, these are programs that are backwards designed based on analysis of the needs of those employers, and specifically designed to address talent shortages that they have. So an employer would be more willing to fund that program as opposed to provide a generic scholarship. So for instance, you're a bank X and you want to hire, say, 100 business analysts this year. There's a cost to recruiting those 100 business analysts, and there's a cost to hiring them, and the cost to training them and onboarding them. So what we're saying is, okay, instead of you paying that to recruiters and to onboarding, sponsor people to go through the program and hire, say, the top 10 or 20% of the graduates. If your program is affordable, it will still end up being cheaper to the bank to do that than to invest in onboarding them directly. So that's our approach, which we think is probably a sustainable, longer-term approach to provide pathways to jobs through education.
Great, thank you so much. My next question is for Abisoye, and I just want to know, in your opinion, right, what can you speak to some of the issues limiting the participation of women in online education, and how these gaps can be closed, right? So apart from what we know, what else from your own experience in the industry, the work you've done, what other issues are arising, and really and truly, what will it take for us to close these gaps?
Thank you very much. So I'll start with lack of awareness. No matter how much progress we've made, I think we have a lot more grounds to cover in terms of online learning. Lack of awareness in the sense that, contrary to what we may believe as middle-class professionals, a lot of women and a lot of young girls don't even know about these opportunities. They don't know about the possibilities, surrounding these opportunities. They don't know about the scholarships that anyone may be offering, any platform may be offering, and there's a reason why I think it's best we take these opportunities to them. Another point I'd like to make is socio-psychological issues, which is the fact that a lot of women, especially in the underserved communities, are yet to see women around them using these skills, learning this way, to realize that this is actually something that can be of a progressive nature to them. And I think another point is recognition from employers. I think during the COVID-19 period, we worked with young ladies between the ages of 18 to 24, and it was strictly online. Till date, I don't think I've met anyone face-to-face, but, and I think one of the issues they complain about is how well are these certificates recognized? Can people even believe that they learn online and is usable for whatever it is they want to do? Personally, I have done a lot of online learning, and I remember as far back as 2007, there was a lot of stigma around online education and how your certificate at the end of the day will not be recognized by employers of labor. And I remember clearly that I was like, oh, I'm going to take the risk regardless. And to date, I am thankful I took that risk. So yes, employers of labor need to let people know that it's okay to learn online, because how else do you want to cover grounds? In all honesty, what are the slots that we have for education opportunities, or for young ladies all around the world to actually take advantage of? So I think this is actually the way to go. We need to take these opportunities to them, especially in the underserved communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love what you said about employers, right, especially those of the labor force, need to actually create avenues for women to learn and to know that it's okay to learn, upskill, right? And in as much as it's 2023, we still know that women are relegated to certain roles, and education is not one of those things that we are in, it has to maybe come from within a community saying, okay, no, let's educate the girl child. But we find that a lot of women are not motivated from the beginning to actually go all the way, or even to study, you know, more difficult courses like engineering, computer science, right? Those, you know, tend to save that for the boys, right? But now the world is changing and women do need to get educated, and they need to get educated all the way through. So thank you for that. That's something that we absolutely need to talk about. So I have,
sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Just a quick point on this issue of employers, because it keeps on coming up. And I frankly want to just interject here, dealing with probably, you know, hundreds of top employers on the continent and elsewhere. I think it's a perception a lot more than a reality. I'm yet to see probably more than one or two employers actually try to differentiate between an online, program and an offline one. Employers tend to care more about, the skills and the competencies that people have, and then they'll use the credential as a proxy. So in the absence of being able to evaluate skills, which most employers aren't able to do properly, they'll look, do you have a degree or not, or do you have, so there isn't that sort of differentiation between where you studied. And when you look at the number of jobs on the continent today, the growth is going to come from, startups and from remote jobs, a lot more than local jobs. So I just want to say that for the women on the event today, that the real opportunity is going to be for remote jobs. And gender, is much less important when it comes to remote. If you're going to work for a company in Texas or Australia or Japan, they're not going to care if you're a male or a female. So that's a huge opportunity for why people should learn online to access these remote jobs.
Thank you. Thank you for that insight. Dasha, so I want to bring the conversation back to online learning platforms, right? When it comes to engaging with women learners, so these are women who want to learn, right? They're eager to do it. What are some challenges you've seen in your own role, in your experience, right? Even with advising global organizations, right? What challenges do you see when it comes to engaging? And then just trickling it down to the continent, right? Knowing that each African country obviously is different and approaches education a bit differently, but even with engaging women, African women on the continent, about education, learning online, what challenges exist and how can we start from now to begin to address those challenges?
Yeah, great question. So there's a few points that perhaps I want to mention when it comes to women. I mean, first of all, women learners are fantastic when they're engaged and they have the right support. We see them succeed just as much, if not more, than male learners. But certainly the barrier to entry can be high, and there can be some, intrinsic sort of challenges that have been mentioned earlier around motivation and confidence, right? So are women encouraged to the same degree to study, first of all, then to study online? And then thirdly, we touched on studying, STEM subjects, or specifically, I suppose, digital and tech areas that we know are increasingly crucial. So encouragement, motivation, but also support. We do know that because of the confidence challenges and because women are taking a bigger leap, when they actually kind of engage in this kind of studying, they don't have enough role models. They don't have enough flexibility within their own schedules, as we pointed out multiple times. They need this additional support. They need coaching. They need somebody on the ground. And this is quite relevant for online learning as well. They need groups of support, in kind of real time, real life, who can get them through it successfully. So I think this motivational coaching element is a really interesting one. And the reason I say this is because we actually had a case study of one of our content partners, University of Virginia, who decided to make, I think it was the vast majority of their content on Coursera available for free to learners in Africa. That's something that they did out of their own choice to impact, obviously, the employability challenges there. And they partnered with local employers, but most importantly, they partnered with a local agency called, I think it was Distance Education for Africa. Distance Education for Africa, who were providing on-the-ground support to increase success. And when that was happening, completion rates of our courses were over 75% across both female and male learners. And it just goes to show that when you've got that support and the confidence boost, it absolutely works and it absolutely happens. So Yeah, I think those are some of the main challenges that I'm seeing. Another challenge that's come out in the report of the study that Pamela has touched on is actually when there's a real purpose to your learning, you achieve much greater results. So when you come to the platform to learn skills for a specific career path, specific industry, you've got a goal in mind, you're much more motivated to complete, and you're much more motivated to actually put those skills to use, right? So that purposeful learning. And generally we'll find that men are currently better at doing that. So they come to the platform to learn specific skills, they're driven, they're motivated, then maybe perhaps they're better at claiming that learning and presenting that learning to the employer, which again goes back to confidence, right? And that's not news to anybody, and it's not region specific, it's global. I think encouraging that purpose, which is why the statistic around female entrepreneurs. So, you know, in Nigeria, when they come to the platform because they want to start their own business, maybe they're already doing something in that space, they're much more likely to find benefit from that learning and to use it. So I think, again, it's looking at younger females and talking about the longer term sort of view of where their education is going to take them, what they can do with their education, and linking learning to career outcomes, to purpose, to career paths. And I think, sorry, final point, it doesn't just stop with the learning. It also, you know, it's also about employers. It's, as we were saying, employers recognizing non-traditional forms of learning that are much more accessible to women at the moment. So enabling and empowering that learning for women as well.
Thank you so much, Dasha. And I also want to bring up an example that we speak to in the report. One of the women in the study is a young woman named Confidence in Nigeria, who was a data analyst, and she was using online learning to study genomic data science, a relatively new and quickly changing field. And she finally found a job after 2 years of searching, after taking a course through Coursera with Johns Hopkins University. So in this study, we've really seen real stories of women who have used online learning to access new opportunities and tools to advance their careers.
I actually have one more example.
Yeah, please. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, please.
There's so much data that we can use that you get lost in all the stats. But, you know, when it comes to female participation in online learning on Coursera, specifically from Nigeria, there's a really interesting difference between the percentage of females that are simply students or young people versus those that are in employment. Because actually, when it comes to professional learners in Nigeria, 40% of those learners are female, which is almost 10% higher than the average female learner population in Nigeria. And that goes to show, again, that link between coaching and confidence. Once you're in employment, you know, your learning is more purposeful, perhaps you have more support, you have more role models, and it just naturally happens more and it's more successful. So, you know, it's that barrier to entry, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, most organizations will have professional development courses anyways listed out for especially high performing team members that they want to grow and retain down the line, right? Now, is this the same? I'm not certain if this is the same with just individuals who want to learn, but maybe perhaps don't have the right motivation. And I believe that came up in this conversation, right? So there's a need to have people who are motivating women, regardless of whether they're employed or not, to learn or pick up a new skill, find a course, whether it's free or if it's paid. Have enough NGOs that are willing to now push those women and say, okay, I'll pay for the course. If the fee is a problem, I'll pay for the course. And then helping them stay, retaining them, keeping them in that course so that they are there from start to finish, right? So there are several, it sounds like, hurdles for us to jump over to get that number from maybe 30, 31%, maybe as high as 60%, 70%, which I believe is possible. It just takes like a lot of work. So before we move into the Q&A, because I know there's some questions in the Q&A box, and then we have some audience questions. This is a general question I'd like to throw to all the panelists, right? You all are working within specific organizations, right? What would you say will need to happen to bring more people or more organizations together to take online learning for women from where it is now to where it could be? Because we know that there's potential, but we've not quite gotten there yet now. So for example, will it take partnerships? And if it will take partnerships with what kind of organizations, with what kind of stakeholders, right? If we're speaking about Nigeria specifically, what do we need? Do we need the government involved, right? We're going into elections now, which means that power is going to change hands, which means whoever comes in has that onus as well to fix the education problem, right? Will it mean fewer brick and mortar schools and more online learning platforms, right? Just in your own, I guess, individual sector, what do you think needs to happen, right? So I'll start with Nneka, I'll start with you.
Okay, all right. I think for us to put the spotlight on online learning, it will take everybody's intervention, so private-public partnership. But specifically, one thing we need to do is start that conversation. So we're not having that conversation. So what it is that we're operating in our little silos. So we have to find a way to connect the dots. So little things, it appears like it's little, by changing the narrative, endorsing the social entrepreneurs who are promoting online learning, the private sector organizations, the companies, the corporates, endorsing associations. So we have things like Girls Guides that are endorsed in the US. So the associations, there are groups like what Abisoye is doing here in Nigeria. They're doing a lot to promote online learning. So just having that conversation, putting that spotlight on it, is one. The second thing is, no, I actually do not think that we need less brick and mortar, but I think we need more emphasis around building more platforms. And when I talk about platforms, as much as possible, platforms that could be white labeled, platforms that internet connectivity will not be an issue. Then the second thing is internet connectivity. That's the major problem for most people. We keep talking about access to capital. What are they using the money for? Is to buy their data, is to buy the device that enables them to be able to use that. And for the most part, a lot of them are struggling with that. They barely have enough to manage, talk less of buying internet. So it's a conversation that has to take part with the telcos, a conversation that has to take part with the social entrepreneurs, and then those in education, the education space. So whether it's the university, the NUC, that's the Nigerian University Commission, whether it's the NUT, but we need to bring everybody together to have that conversation. We've been operating in silos and we need to connect the dots.
Thank you so much. Love that point about needing to connect the dots, right? I do agree that we don't need fewer brick and mortar or schools or institutions, right, or learning centers. I do believe, however, that there needs to be a more collaborative effort between what is on ground and what exists online. Right. There are people that want to, for example, learn at Pan-Atlantic University, right? But maybe they can't go all the way there, right? So that means that the institution then needs to think, okay, how do we bring these people online where they're partaking in what the university has to offer, but they don't have to be here, right? If they can't be here, they can't be here, but perhaps there's a way we can connect with them. Thank you so much for that point. Abisoye, yes, a blended approach here.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to add to what Nneka already said. In this instance, I'm looking at a situation whereby the African educational system is to start finding a solution around codifying online courses. So which means, how can we ascribe credit from maybe a Coursera or a Udemy to what we are doing in schools? So which means, okay, 4 units from Coursera can go into my normal, my formal school, either secondary school education, either university education. I think a lot of people will actually take this very serious, and I'm speaking to Africa as a continent because I can see that there's so many people on this call right now who are not just Nigerians, and I think this issue cuts across basically, every one of us. How can you get a Google certificate and have, some form of transferable credits into your formal school? I think this will go a long way, and this is strictly for those who can even have the infrastructure and the resources for this. But the question still lies to, what about those who don't even know how to use mobile phones? What about those who cannot afford data? And I think Nneka made mention about a couple of these things, and thanks to the great job NGOs are doing, I've partnered with some of them, still partnering with a lot of them. It's as a result of this that a lot of young girls today now have a voice and agency to actually know that they can actually go online. I have a lot of young girls whose family lives under $2 a day. They actually know how to use Coursera, they know how to use Khan Academy, they know how to actually talk to their friends, their peers who are not in our kind of programs to actually do the same thing. So thank you, I'll leave it as that.
Thank you so much, good points. Fadl?
I agree with Abisoye's point, particularly on understanding that education is sort of an ecosystem, right? Like we need to recognize people get educated in different ways, and we need to attribute value to each of these ways. But beyond that, I would say there's two really sort of game changers. One is policy reform for sure, where there's governments need to reform in order to boost the level of credibility that people believe exists in online education. And they have to do that simply because of the supply-demand shortages. So local governments, especially in Nigeria, if you look, there's maybe almost 4 million high school graduates, and there's like maybe 600,000-700,000 university seats per year. So there's just no way they're going to meet that capacity. So I would say government, policy reform is one. But the second is really, purposeful design. I think that's the most impactful thing we can have. If employers make it very clear what it is they're looking for from a skills perspective, then people have a goal. And that's really what transforms everything. Forget the modality, whether it's online or offline is less important. What matters more is for one to have a goal and to understand if I study X, I'm going to get one of these 3 jobs. So if people see that very specific goal, then they can have a purpose, and the funding then takes care of itself, be it the self-funding or a loan or a micro loan. People will fund if they see that the chances of success are high toward when you complete the program.
Thank you so much, Fadl. Good points. Dasha?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like to build on some of what's been said, but certainly for us as Coursera, partnerships, impactful partnerships are the way forward. So I spend a lot of my time talking to universities in particular. Do we need fewer traditional educational institutions? Absolutely not. But I think we need to enable and grow access to education through those institutions as well. So something that we do is we encourage institutions to offer more blended learning, more stackable learning in emerging areas. We support the quality, sometimes of the experience and the education that's offered there. And I think Abisoye, you made a really interesting point about recognizing credits, right? Recognizing the efforts and the credits that students are making on online platforms. So we're working with local accreditation agencies to not only assess the quality of the learning of students on Coursera, because that's a crucial point, but also to give them those transferable credits so they can take that learning to their next educational institution, within their own countries. And I think that's empowered a lot of flexibility and access. We also have partnerships with local development agencies. So for example, we've recently partnered with NIDDA. So that's the Nigeria National Information Technology Development Agency, to facilitate the digital transformation of the economy. And they are actually giving 10% of the licenses to unemployed youth in particular. So they're kind of reaching out to those underserved groups of their own accord through Coursera Learning. Similarly, telcos were mentioned. We also recently partnered with MTN. And they have, again, a Skills Academy initiative and are reaching underserved population in African communities in particular. So enabling these organizations to improve digital skills across the country. And the final point I'll mention when it comes to online learning is, of course, connectivity. And I think that's a challenge. It remains a challenge. We talked about people being able to use mobile phones, having mobile phones. It's not universally accessible, of course, but there are things we can do, such as making the content accessible offline, where they can download if they have limited access to internet. That's available on Coursera, and also reducing the download, so speed and the quality of the videos and content, right? So you can actually choose the sort of different options of content that you can download if you have limited connectivity. So there are things we can do, but I think it remains a challenge for us.
Thank you so much. And Pamela, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share here?
Yeah, I'd like to speak a bit to the role of IFC in this as a development organization, and our role in really convening different actors, such as financial institutions, universities, and the private sector, to find solutions to solve the financing issues that we've mentioned. The other thing I want to mention is the data collection, and we really encourage platforms to invest in the collection of gender disaggregated data, and we really invite attendees to and panelists to do that in their own organizations in order to identify the gaps where women and men are learning online differently or benefiting differently. Okay,
great. Thank you. A poll is going to go up before we move into Q&A. A poll is going to go up. So I'll have the TC Insights team put up the poll. Yeah, okay, it's up. So there are just 4 questions. So if we just have everyone vote. as many people as possible, please vote. If you cannot see it, there is at the bottom of the screen, of your Zoom screen, you should see polls. It's a feature within Zoom. Please click on it and fill out the poll. It helps us with planning these events.
I'd also like to answer a question that was in the Q&A earlier. I wasn't able to answer, and so I'll take advantage of this break to speak to it. I think there was a question on whether the report has insights on Africa in general instead of just Nigeria. I just wanted to say that the main report that we published has insights on Africa overall. And while Nigeria is the only deep dive we did on the continent, but the global data that we utilize in the study covers other countries in the region. And Nigeria has one of the highest learner numbers in the region. However, as mentioned already, we have the study, more studies need to be done so that we can uncover and address more of the gaps, and we hope that more edtech platforms all over Africa do the same analysis and publish the findings.
Thank you for that, Pamela. I was hoping that that question would be answered. I think we're done with the poll, are we? Okay, yeah, for the most part. Okay. So when TC Insights ends the poll, then we can move on to the Q&A. I'm going to select some questions. I know a few questions have been answered. I see that Fadl has answered some questions here. So I'll come to some of the open questions, and anyone who wants to take it. Okay, yeah, I think Pamela just answered this one about Nigeria. Okay, there's a question here from Mercy. Seeing that 70% of learners rely on mobile access, how do you make tech-related courses that may include coding, for example, into mobile-friendly courses? That's a good question. Would anybody like to answer that?
Yeah, I'm happy to kick it off, and then feel free to kind of jump in. So, yeah, I mean, first of all, completely agree that particularly in the African region and Nigeria, we see a lot of learning happening on mobiles. In fact, for Nigeria, 79% of learners access via mobile compared to 50% globally. So clearly, this is a huge sort of adjustment we need to make, and we need to make sure it works. As far as I know, all of our assessments are available on mobile, right? So it's an entirely mobile-friendly experience. So actually, it's possible and it's happening, is the sort of short answer to this. It depends on the environment and I suppose specific coding languages that you're looking into. But within Coursera, when you're learning a digital tool, whether it's data visualization or coding, you actually access it within cloud, within Coursera. So you don't need to come off the Coursera platform or download anything else on your mobile or your laptop to be able to do it. So I believe that that's possible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dash. Would anybody like to add anything to that point? Okay. So there's a question here from Isabella. Starting from zero, what can a community do to solve this problem, women and online learning? And then secondly, I guess it's a question for Dasha, if there are any free certified courses that Coursera is offering. But the first one is really important, which is how can community building or engagement help with improving online learning numbers for women? Abisoye, would you like to speak into that?
Sorry, did you call me?
Yes.
Okay. My first question would have been, what kind of community are we talking about? Is it an underserved community? Because they all have different issues and barriers going on. So I would want to assume it's an underserved community you're talking about. So some of the things that I believe has worked for us, besides going into the communities, engaging the different stakeholders or drivers of change in these communities. I'm talking about the gatekeepers, which are like the chiefs, then the parents and the girls, because they have different interests and you have to speak different languages to all of them. You need to make them understand the essence. You need to make them understand the value of education in the first place. And when you start having track record and success stories, they need to see, because every parent wants their kids to do well. and they don't want to see their neighbors' kids doing good and their kids are not doing great. That's what I know that's worked for us, because when we started, we didn't have any track record, but we kept going, we kept talking, and we kept pleading for parents to allow their girls to learn, because they were adamant that their boys are more important than their girls. But the moment success stories started happening, they started seeing scholarships coming from different places. Their kids are getting scholarship into private schools. And everybody started wondering, can our girls learn? Can we bring our girls to your center? Can you connect us to other nonprofits who are doing similar work? That's because there's a success story. So I think that would be great for you to go by.
Okay. Sorry, can I just add to that? Thank you so much, Abisoye, for that. Saying I also agree with Abisoye that it depends on the community. Something that I found that has worked in a different community, more centrally, so not down south, up north, was the fact that, and I keep talking about collaboration, I can't stop talking about collaboration. That particular community, the first thing that was done was to get everybody on board to tune into a radio station that we typically call What Is In It For Me. So this community was a community of micro entrepreneurs, and language was a barrier. So that's the first thing, which is why I seriously believe that we cannot move forward without making sure that online and physical go hand in hand. So we democratized that learning. And what do I mean by that? So we had one person that came and was able to translate the language online to the women in that community. So it was a community of, there are roughly 4 dozen of them. And it really was around personal productivity. And what happened was that the women started better utilizing the housekeeping money that they were given, because they're not working. And because they could better utilize the housekeeping money and make savings, they were able to have something left over to start something small. Now, the next step of that was a conversation at the forum where the men meet. Because we really need to be very careful when we talk about online learning, we talk about communities and all that, not to disrupt too soon, too quickly, if we want it to be sustainable. Okay, so the next thing was a conversation that took place where the men were, to show that, look, this has proven that with the learning that they didn't, and for the most part, they didn't really want that learning to take place. This is what has happened. And what it means is that they're eventually saving you money. Now, what happened after that was a conversation with the town union, where typically in Nigeria, I'll use Nigeria as an example, most communities, we have a lot of indigents doing very well in the urban areas. And what they would normally do is to send money to do, the traditional things, to sink a borehole, send bags of rice and do that. So there was now a proper organized conversation around what that community needed. And what it needed was so not necessarily to build something, but they asked them, look, can you do a drive for us of all devices and send it? So there's a drive for devices, and it's actually still ongoing and it's grown. And then there was I think they had someone talk to the local internet service provider there to provide access to data for that community. So I think that it's possible, but we need to be very mindful. We need to be very deliberate and intentional about exactly what we're trying to do, so that in solving one problem, you're not creating more problems.
Yeah, this is very, very key, to not create more problems as you're trying to solve one problem. Okay, let's see what we have here. Trying to just look through.
I think perhaps I'll take the point on.
Okay, yes. Oh, yes. Dasha, yes, please go ahead.
It's a short answer. So there'll be some courses that you can get a certificate for free, as I mentioned with the example of University of Virginia, and also University of London provide free courses to learners in Africa or across a range of African countries. However, the vast majority of our courses are free to audit, right? So yes, you need to pay for the certificate, but you can do the learning. You can actually go through the vast majority of the content without paying anything, which, again, facilitates the learning and kind of information. I think the best way for undeserved groups to access I suppose the learning and the certificates and the funding is through scholarships. So, financial aid and scholarships are available on Coursera for specific certificates. And actually that's facilitated 460,000 enrollments in Nigeria, as an example, so far. So there's clearly quite a bit of funding available. Obviously, you need to apply for that funding. So courses, certificates won't be free from the get-go, but if there's motivation, then there is a way to do that.
Dasha, I also have you. There is a question here, directed at Coursera. Zai is asking if Coursera has considered partnering with indigenous communities in Africa, particularly legal courses that are grounded in traditions and customs, given the growing recognition of the importance of indigenous legal education. It's quite interesting. And I think this person is a lawyer, so they're speaking from their own experience in that area.
Would this be for indigenous communities to produce the content on Coursera? I'm guessing it would be.
I'm guessing yes.
Because I know that when it comes to, we definitely have legal content on Coursera, but it's challenging for us to accommodate that to very specific regions. And I think that's an area we definitely need to expand into. Have we considered this? I'm not sure. I think I know that we wouldn't have a huge amount of content on this at the moment for full transparency. I think it's very challenging to kind of cater for all of these individual contexts, but I fully believe that it's an area that we should do more in. So again, if you have suggestions, partnerships, content creators that would be leading in this space, please by all means get in touch and we can discuss this further.
Thank you. We got an audience question about what it takes to encourage women to actually become teachers on platforms like Coursera or Udemy, right? What will it take in this age of online learning to get women, professional women who have experience, who have knowledge, to actually get on these platforms and then offer courses or come up with curriculums that perhaps can be featured, or they can even run in smaller groups? What challenges exist there? And is this something that could potentially also help more women, sign up for online learning? If I think somebody has shared that there's data that shows that women feel more comfortable learning from other women, right? So if we're getting more women to teach, how do we get from, having the idea to implementing it? Let me ask Fadl that question, since, Nextford offers courses and things like that. What is there any data from your end that shows, a gap in women teachers versus male teachers, and how we can get more women teaching courses online?
Yeah, I can't say that I have any such data. I mean, at Nextford, we are about, we actually have more females, more males and then more women than men. I think we're almost 60% female as an organization. I'm not aware, honestly, from an industry perspective. But again, if the question is about how do we encourage more teachers, there's a shortage of teachers all around the world, right? Whether in the US or in Africa, there's a huge shortage of teachers. So I think the solution there is to the earlier point we discussed, is for the employers to make it clear how one can become qualified to become a teacher. I mean, just like any other occupation, I mean, women across Africa would take online courses to become teachers if they knew the schools would hire them as a result. So, many governments still have regulations that, prevent that from happening, and they force people to take physical programs. And these physical programs don't have capacity. So even if they wanted to become a teacher, the schools are full. So it's this, vicious cycle. So again, I think the real solution is in the employers making it clear, what do you need to take in order to qualify for a job here? And they have every incentive to do that because they can find teachers.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we've come to the end of this session. We've answered all the questions in the Q&A and the questions that were sent in. Now we'd just like to take final words from the panelists, or if there's anyone in the audience that would like to ask a question directly to the panelists, as long as it's aligned with the conversation, please feel free to put up your hand. And if you're in an area where you can speak, that would be great, somewhere quiet. So I see Ashley. Okay, Ashley, what was your question, please? I think I'm just gonna... Okay, fantastic.
Yes, hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, thank you for putting this together. I had a few questions in regards to K through 12 online learning. And I understand that there's been a focus on different companies here today, but I'm actually an entrepreneur and I am growing a K through 12 online homeschool academy. I'm based in Tanzania. I have a master's in education and over 10 years of experience in education. And I understand, Mama Nneka, you had mentioned earlier about gaining endorsements from people for your business starting. And as I said, I know you all talked about companies that are already existing, but I am a startup here on the continent. I am of African descent, and I believe that it's very important that our children get a proper education based upon our African history. So how I'm a graduate of the University of Miami and the University of Texas in the United States. And even though I have graduated from those places, my professional network is small at the moment. So my first question was, how do we look for those endorsements when maybe we're not, like I said, I'm in Tanzania, there's not a lot of like ed tech companies here right now. And I don't have a professional network. So what is some advice that you would give for someone just starting out on their entrepreneurial journey in education for endorsements?
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Ashley, for that question. I think the first thing is that you need to build your track record. And that's the first. I understand that you're just starting and all that. By the time you focus and build your track record, the next thing is for you to start to document your case studies of success. And then the last thing is that from end to end, be very deliberate about creating a community. Now, the beautiful thing about that is that data is king. In my country, we used to say that oil was the big deal, but now data is. You will become formidable when you have a very strong network of people that you have impacted on. And indeed, they can go around spreading the gospel that, yes, if not for that platform, that group, that program, they wouldn't be where they are. And by the time you have done that, right, I would say baby steps. Right? Because you also need to be very, very careful about who you're collaborating with so that you're not, you don't veer off course. So build your community, right? Make sure that you're deliberately intentional about making sure that you have success stories. When you have those success stories, you need to stand on the rooftops and shout. So whatever budget you have for media, those are the kind of things that you want to keep sponsoring. And I know that you're in East Africa, you're probably thinking, oh, I'm somewhere down there in East Africa and Tanzania. We don't have a lot of global edtech brands, but the collaboration doesn't have to be from there. It could be from somewhere because you're dealing with a younger demography. So there's so many corporates that are looking for communities now. So if you go back and you check the trends, I don't have offhand now the stats, you find out that even by way of advertising, by way of corporate communication and things and trying to reach out, people are more favorable to communities. So build your community, build a very strong, vibrant community that you can showcase to say, if not for this platform, they won't be doing what they're doing. And then after that, you need to now start going and share your story. So yes, we have the case studies. You can go online and share a lot of things on Facebook, on Instagram, wherever. But you also need to take your story out and offer yourself, be a panelist at various sessions, and then share your story, share what you've done. And I promise you that very soon they'll be knocking on your door.
Thank you so much, Mama.
Madam Nneka, thank you so much for that. I'm not going to add to it. I'm just going to say, actually, well done with the work you're doing. I know what it feels like to be in your shoes. I have been there. I was there for years. And I'm just going to say everything Madam Nneka said, I lived through it. Started from in-kind support, using people's spaces from there to there before funds started coming in. I can tell you that maybe I didn't get any fund for about maybe 3 years or 4 years. And when it comes to telling your story, you are your own PR. I used Facebook. All I was doing was journey so far. What are they doing now? What have they done now? What did they do yesterday? What did they achieve today? Everything that way till funds start coming in, till banks start reaching out, till folks outside the country start reaching out. So I believe you'll get there. Please just follow everything she said. It's super important.
Thank you, Mama Abisoye.
Okay, Ashley, I sent you a direct message with my email. Let's connect. I'm part of a platform, Learning and Development Africa, on the continent. So let's just start talking and see what can happen.
Thank you, Mama. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. Yes, one of the reasons why we put this conversation together is to ensure that people are able to connect even after we're done with the edition. Somebody's asked how often we hold TC Live. We try, I think we do them I think 3 times a month, but the TC Insights team will definitely share more information. We do publicize all our events on our social media pages at TechCabal. You know, even if you sign up to our newsletters, you will get information even weeks before we announce the program. So it's always useful to follow us on social media just to get a sense of what we're up to. So we come to the end of today's session. Thank you so much to all our panelists for speaking, for sharing their knowledge. We deeply appreciate it. As we mentioned earlier, this conversation was put together by the TC Insights team. More about TC Insights, you can just search them and they have a page on our website. If you're interested in actionable insights, data, this is the team to contact. They're open to collaboration, they're open, to partnerships, and this is what they do. They put together reports and data. We even have some reports on the TechCabal website that were put together by the TechCabal Insights team. So we encourage you to check that out. Media publication, we report business and technology news in Africa, or we talk about big tech companies and what it is that they're doing on the continent and what we should pay attention to. Our most read newsletter is TC Daily. It's a weekly newsletter. It goes out every weekday at 7 a.m. and it's a roundup of technology news in Africa, on the continent, outside Africa, but directly affects what's going on the continent. And we have a host of other newsletters that you find on the website. Thank you to everyone, our attendees, for joining in. We appreciate the fact that you learned a lot from this webinar. It's going to go up on our YouTube channel in about 2 weeks, and then we're going to also write and publish a recap article within the week. So please expect something on the website next week. Other than that, we appreciate you all. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next session, the next TC Live session. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone.